My name is Lauren. I am 31 years old. This Christmas was supposed to be the first one I spent for myself instead of saving everyone else. Instead, I ended up watching my mom, Jennifer, clutch her phone, her face draining of color as she whispered, "What? This cannot be happening." 5 kids screamed in the background on our video call, toys were crashing, someone was wailing because juice had just spilled on a brand new designer dress. On the other end, I just stared back, silently sending her a photo of my boarding pass to Bora Bora. The contrast was lethal, her chaos in Aspen versus my peace. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Drop a comment and let me know your story. I'd love to know who's part of our community. The phone call that started this war didn't ring. It hummed against the mahogany of my desk like a persistent, annoying insect. It was 2 weeks before the gala, and I was in my office, staring at a clinical data set that represented 3 years of my life and the potential survival of 10,000 patients. My neck was stiff, and my eyes were burning from the fluorescent lights. The only thing keeping me upright was the thought of the $25,000 non-refundable deposit I had just placed on a sanctuary in Bora Bora. It was a luxury I had earned through 80-hour work weeks and a decade of being the reliable shadow in my family's bright, loud world. I answered on the 3rd ring. I didn't say hello, I just said, "Hey, Mom." Jennifer's voice was a bright, synthetic chirp. It was the sound she used when she was about to ask for a kidney but wanted to make it sound like she was doing me a favor. "Lauren, sweetie. Perfect timing. I have the most wonderful plan for Christmas, and you are going to absolutely love it." I felt my jaw tighten. In my family, when Jennifer has a plan, it usually involves me being the infrastructure for someone else's happiness. I didn't lean into the excitement. I kept my voice flat, professional, and clinical. "What kind of plan, Mom?" "I'm in the middle of a report. You know how Hannah and Tyler are bringing all the kids to Aspen this year," she began, her tone shifting into that breezy, casual register that always signaled an incoming entitlement, "and they really deserve a night off, Lauren. They work so hard with the little ones. We were thinking you could watch the kids for a few days while we get the Legacy Gala ready and have some much-needed adult time. It will only be 5 kids, and you're so good with them." There was no question mark at the end of that sentence. It was a directive, a service order. I looked at the flight confirmation on my secondary monitor. "Mom, I already told you, I booked a trip. I'm going to Bora Bora. I've been saving for this for 18 months. The time is already approved." The silence on the other end lasted exactly half a beat before she laughed it off, a sharp, dismissive sound that reminded me I was merely a footnote in her ledger. "Well, of course, but you can move that, right? It isn't like you have a husband or kids to worry about, Lauren. You're flexible. Your family actually needs you this year. This gala is about the Henderson legacy. You wouldn't want to be the reason it fails, would you?" Flexible, the word felt like a physical burn. To Jennifer, my career in life-saving clinical research was flexible, my solitude was availability, my lack of a traditional family was a void that she felt entitled to fill with her own convenience. She was de-romanticizing my life, treating my time as a disposable asset. I didn't engage in the debate. Emotion is just bad data in an audit, so I deleted it. I realized in that moment that our relationship wasn't built on love. It was a subscription model, and I had been footing the bill for years. My compassion was a luxury they had overdrafted one too many times. "I need to think about it," I said. My voice was a dead calm. "You don't have to think, Lauren," she replied briskly, the sweetness dropping away to reveal the cold iron of her expectations. "You know what the right thing is. We are all counting on you. Don't be dramatic." She hung up, confident that the guilt would settle into my bones like it always did. But as I sat there in the silence of my office, I didn't feel guilty, I felt clear. I looked at my laptop screen. The Bora Bora retreat was waiting for a final confirmation click. The price was $25,000. It was a staggering amount, a year's worth of property taxes for the Aspen cabin they loved so much. I didn't let a single tear blur my vision. My index finger didn't hesitate as it moved to deliver the final verdict on the keyboard. I realized they weren't shocked by their own cruelty. They were just comfortable with my compliance. I reached out and hit the confirm key. The sound was a sharp, decisive click that echoed in the quiet room. It wasn't just a travel booking, it was the first entry in a new set of books. This wasn't a breakdown, it was a forced reconciliation of accounts. I watched the payment successful message glow on the screen, and for the first time in 31 years, I felt like the CEO of my own life. I stared at the payment successful screen, my reflection caught in the dark glass of the monitor. For years, I had been the silent architect of the Henderson family's prestige. My parents and siblings walked through life with a sense of unearned buoyancy, never realizing that I was the one treading water beneath them. keeping their heads above the surface. They spoke of the Legacy Gala and the Aspen Cabin as if these things were birthrights, woven into their DNA. They didn't see the spreadsheets, they didn't see the quarterly wire transfers I made to cover the property taxes on that cabin, taxes that amounted to nearly $15,000 every 6 months. I was the silent investor in their version of family. While Hannah posted photos of her designer nursery and Tyler bragged about his country club membership, I was the one ensuring the foundation didn't crumble. I had spent a decade de-romanticizing my own existence to fund theirs. To me, affection wasn't a feeling, it was a contract I felt obligated to honor. Every holiday I saved by babysitting 5 children was just another installment payment on a debt I never actually owed. It's hard to explain why I stayed in that role for so long. People looking from the outside often ask why the strong one doesn't just walk away. They don't understand that for me, childhood was a prison without bars. I was a victim of a subtle, pervasive form of theft called parentification. When I was 12, I wasn't learning how to be a preteen, I was learning how to be a secondary parent. I was the one making sure Tyler's homework was done while Jennifer was at her tennis matches. I was the one soothing Hannah's nightmares while my father was networking at the club. I was conditioned to believe that my value was tied directly to my utility. In our house, love wasn't unconditional, it was a reward for being useful. If I wasn't solving a problem, I was the problem. I became a survivor of a dynamic that demanded I sacrifice my present to secure everyone else's future. It was a rhythmic, invisible chain. I was the reliable one, only because I had been taught that being anything else meant being invisible. This year, however, the balance sheet changed. My compassion had been a luxury they had overdrafted for too long. I wasn't just a daughter, I was the person who paid the bills they ignored and did the work they found beneath them. As I prepared to leave for Bora Bora, I realized that I wasn't just taking a vacation, I was withdrawing my investment. I was liquidating the Henderson legacy. If they wanted to play house in Aspen, they were going to have to learn how to pay the entry fee, in both labor and cash. Without my unpaid expertise, the ghost was finally leaving the machine. The notifications started pinging at 3 a.m. I was still awake, hunched over my laptop, finalizing a critical drug trial report that would determine the next 5 years of funding for our oncology department. While I was analyzing mortality rates and efficacy markers, the Henderson Legacy group chat was erupting with festive emojis. Jennifer had dropped the bomb. Incredible news, everyone. Lauren has officially promised to take the lead with all 5 kids for the entire gala week. She knows how much Hannah and Tyler need this break. We are so lucky to have such a selfless angel in the family. I stared at that word, promised. It was a lie so bold it was almost impressive. I had said I would think about it, but in Jennifer's reality, my hesitation was just a formal waiting period for her to announce her victory. She hadn't asked, she had drafted me. This is the trap of normalized cruelty. In my family, my exploitation had been rebranded as a reliability. Jennifer didn't see herself as a manipulator, she saw herself as a manager of resources, and in her mind, I was the most efficient, low-cost resource she had. By calling me an angel, she wasn't complimenting me, she was setting a trap. If I refused, I wasn't just saying no to a favor, I was betraying the very identity she had assigned to me. It is a classic tactic. Give the victim a saintly title so that any boundary they set looks like a fall from grace. They make the abuse feel like a duty, turning your own virtues into weapons they can use against you. Hannah replied within seconds, "Oh my God, Lauren, you are a literal lifesaver. I already booked my luxury spa package for the 24th. I was so stressed about who would handle the twins. Thank you." Tyler followed up with a series of thumbs up emojis. "Best news all day. I owe you a beer, sis. Now I can actually focus on the donor list for the anniversary gala without having a toddler hanging off my leg." None of them asked if I was okay, they reacted with the collective relief of people who had just successfully offloaded their baggage onto someone else for free. They didn't see a sister, they saw a solution. To them, my lack of a spouse and children meant my life was a blank slate they were entitled to write their own needs across. Then came the private message from Jennifer. It was devoid of the angel talk. "Lauren, I saw your, I will think about it text from earlier. I have already made the announcement to the family. Do not pull anything dramatic now. We have a lot riding on this gala, and the Henderson brand depends on us looking like a united, successful front. Be responsible." United, successful, front, these were the only things that mattered to her. I wasn't a daughter, I was a public relations asset. I didn't reply to the group chat, I didn't send an angry text to my siblings, I just looked at the oncology report on my screen. It was due in 6 hours. My work saved lives, their gala saved appearances. I typed a message so neutral it was lethal. got the messages. I will figure out my own schedule and let you know. I could almost hear her sigh of relief in Aspen. She thought the guilt had worked. She thought I was figuring out how to cancel my flights and my life. But I wasn't looking for a way to fit into their expectations. I was looking for the exit. My compassion had been a luxury they had overdrafted for years, and tonight, the Henderson family account was officially overdrawn. I didn't spend the next morning looking for a way to fix the mess Jennifer had created. I spent it in a sterile office in the city, sitting across from Destiny. Destiny has been my closest friend since we were 21, but today, she wasn't just my friend, she was a forensic accountant. She sees the world in black and white, debits and credits, and undeniable proof. The office smelled like cold coffee and the metallic scent of a laser printer. There were no Christmas decorations here, no fake smiles, just facts. "You're sure about this, Lauren?" she asked, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. "Once I run this audit and you pull these endorsements, the gala doesn't just lose its shine, it loses its solvency." "I'm sure," I said. My voice was as cold as the glass of water on the desk. "I've been the silent investor in their version of family for too long, it's time for a liquidation." We didn't talk about how my mother had gaslit me in a group chat. We didn't discuss how my siblings treated my time like a free commodity. Instead, we looked at the ledger. I had been the one who secured the 40 corporate sponsorships for the Legacy Gala. I had used my professional reputation as a research director to convince pharmaceutical giants and medical equipment firms to donate over $500,000 to the Henderson Charity Fund. These companies weren't there for Jennifer's catering or Hannah's social media presence, they were there because they trusted me. "If you withdraw your professional endorsement," Destiny noted, pointing at a line item on her screen, "the 3 largest sponsors will trigger their exit clauses. That's $250,000 gone in 24 hours. Do it," I replied. I wasn't feeling anger. I was feeling the satisfaction of a balanced equation. I pulled out my phone and started drafting emails to my corporate contacts. I informed them that due to personal reasons, I would no longer be chairing the gala's scientific committee and that my endorsement was being retracted. I watched the emails send, one by one. This was the professional escalation. In Jennifer's mind, I was just the daughter who didn't have real responsibilities. She had forgotten that my responsibilities were the only thing keeping her social standing alive. The gala wasn't a family tradition. It was a business, and I was the majority shareholder. By 12 o'clock, I had effectively bankrupted the event's prestige. "There's more," Destiny said. She looked up from her screen, her expression shifting from professional curiosity to something darker. "Lauren, you need to look at the escrow account for the childcare and event staffing, the one you seeded with $50,000 of your own money." I leaned in. My heart didn't race, it stayed steady, counting the seconds. "What am I looking at, Destiny?" "The withdrawal history," she whispered. "There was a $20,000 transfer made last week. It was authorized with a digital signature, whose signature a Destiny turned the monitor toward me. The name on the transfer authorization was Jennifer Henderson. My mother hadn't just volunteered me to babysit because she thought I was an angel, she had done it because she had already stolen the money meant for professional help. She had sold my holiday to line her own pockets. The audit was complete, the contract was broken, my compassion had been an asset they had embezzled, and now, the reckoning was inevitable. I didn't need to yell, I had the ledger. I stared at the name on the screen until the digital ink burned into my retinas. Jennifer Henderson. It wasn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding, it was a calculated, criminal act. My mother hadn't volunteered me to watch 5 children because she truly valued my angelic nature. She had done it because she had already embezzled $20,000 from the escrow account I had seeded for professional childcare. She had sold my time, my rest, and my sanity to line her own pockets, betting everything on the assumption that I would never check the books and would always cave to the weight of family guilt. Destiny leaned back, her face pale in the glow of the monitor. "Lauren, this is forgery. She used your digital credentials to authorize the transfer to her personal account. She didn't just ask you for a favor, she stole your holiday and then gaslit you into believing it was a family duty." I rubbed my eyes, trying to find a flicker of regret, but there was only clarity. This wasn't just a family argument anymore, it was a crime scene. As I looked at the documentation, I began to understand the illusion of my family's power. For years, they had projected an image of absolute authority and upper-class stability. They walked with the confidence of people who owned the world, but the truth was far more pathetic. There is a fundamental difference between having immaterial wealth and being a person of character. My mother and my siblings existed entirely in the having mode. Their status, their designer clothes, and their Aspen lifestyle were just a hollow shell, a position they rented using my labor and my money. They had no intrinsic value to stand on, they were built on the assumption that someone else would always pay the bill, someone else would always clean the juice off the rug, and someone else would always sacrifice their life to keep the illusion alive. This module of their existence functioned only as long as I remained the silent pillar, but when the money stops and the labor is withdrawn, their entire world collapses because they lack the internal strength to stand alone. Their power was a borrowed light, and I was finally turning off the generator. "What do you want to do, Lauren?" Destiny asked, her hand hovering over the print button. "This is enough to freeze her accounts and initiate criminal proceedings." "I'm not going to call her," I said. My voice was devoid of emotion, a sharp contrast to the frantic chirp Jennifer had used on the phone. "I'm not going to give her the chance to cry or tell me I'm being dramatic. I'm going to let the reality she created catch up to her." I spent the next 2 hours with Destiny drafting the formal notice. We documented the $96,000 in mortgage assistance, the property taxes, and finally, the $20,000 theft. This wasn't a daughter reaching out to a mother, this was a creditor demanding a settlement. I wasn't just walking away, I was dismantling the Henderson brand from the inside out. As I walked out of that office, the city air felt different. I was no longer the reliable shadow, I was the architect of their reckoning. They were about to learn that when you sell someone's soul for $20,000, you better hope they don't decide to come back and collect the interest. Christmas Eve arrived with a stillness that only the middle of the ocean can provide. My phone hummed with a video call request, and I answered while leaning back in a teak lounge chair, the sound of the Pacific waves providing a rhythmic contrast to the high-pitched hysteria I knew was coming. Jennifer's face filled the screen. She was standing in the kitchen of the Aspen cabin, her hair disheveled and her expensive silk blouse stained with organic grape juice. Behind her, the $1 million retreat looked like a disaster zone. Tyler was in the background, shouting at Hannah about a lost tablet, while the screaming of 5 children created a wall of sound that made the entire Legacy Gala feel like a frantic fever dream. "Lauren." "Thank God," Jennifer gasped, her voice reaching a shrill desperation I had never heard in my 31 years. "You have to help us. There's been a massive glitch. 3 of our lead corporate sponsors called this morning to withdraw their support. The gala is falling apart. The catering is demanding immediate payment, and the staff says the childcare budget is frozen. We need a Christmas miracle, sweetie. You need to call your contacts and fix this right now." I didn't flinch. I didn't offer a single word of comfort or the angelic compliance she expected. I simply adjusted my sunglasses and let the camera capture the palm trees swaying in the Bora Bora breeze. "It's not a glitch, Jennifer," I said. My voice was clinical, stripped of any familial warmth. "I officially withdrew my professional endorsements yesterday, and I'm the one who froze the sponsorship accounts." She stopped breathing for a full second, her eyes bulging at the screen. "What? Why would you do that? You're destroying the Henderson brand. Do you have any idea how much money is at stake?" $1,500,000. "I have a very clear idea of the stakes," I replied. "I also have a clear idea of what happens when an exploitative subscription is cancelled. For years, you've mistaken my unpaid labor for your family legacy. You built your social standing on a foundation you didn't own. You thought your status was something you had, like a possession, but you forgot that true position is something you are through competence and integrity." This was the moment the illusion of their power shattered. My family lived in a world of having the Aspen cabin, having the gala, and having a reliable daughter they could use for free, but they had no being. Their entire position was just a hollow shell they had rented, using my money and my silent sacrifice. Without me, they didn't even have the internal strength to manage 5 children, let alone a high-stakes event. They were collapsing in real time because they were fundamentally hollow. "Lauren, please," she began to sob, the martyrdom routine finally cracking. "We're family. How can you be so cruel on Christmas?" "Cruelty is a matter of accounting," I said, my tone turning lethal. "Let's talk about the $20,000 you forged my digital signature to steal from the childcare and staffing fund. I have the audit from Destiny, Jennifer. I have the digital trail that leads straight to your personal account. You didn't just use me as a service, you robbed me while calling me an angel." The color drained from her face, leaving her looking old and diminished. My finisher was precise. "I've already instructed my legal team to prepare the evidence for the authorities. However, I'm a woman of facts. I'll give you until the end of the holiday to wire exactly $20,000 back into that account, plus the $96,000 in mortgage assistance and property taxes I've provided over the years. If the total is not in my account by December 26th, the next person calling you won't be your daughter, it will be the police." I didn't wait for her to beg, I didn't stay to watch her kitchen continue to burn, I ended the call. The silence of the Bora Bora beach was the only sound left, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a burden I had to carry, it felt like a balance sheet that finally added up to zero. The Legacy Anniversary Gala didn't just fail, it vanished from the social calendar forever. By the morning of December 26th, the total of $116,000 hit my account in a series of frantic wire transfers. Jennifer chose her freedom over the hollow Henderson family brand. Hannah and Tyler were finally forced to parent their own children without my unpaid labor. I sat on the beach, looked at the family group chat one last time, and hit delete. My worth was never in my usefulness to them, it was in the freedom to finally be me. Did Lauren go too far by threatening her mother with charges, or was it the only way to break the cycle? Share this story with someone who needs to set a boundary today.